life is long, man. I get YOLO, you only live once, but it's a long life. So it's like, do you really want to be doing something that is constantly feels like you're swimming against the current, you're sanding against the grain? If you know what you like, then get your foot in it on any level, whether it's taking education path to learn it, going volunteering in it, trying to find a part-time gig in it, whatever it is, I don't care. Even if you're like, I bet you now, especially with the internet, I bet you there are people right now who are juggling, who love juggling, who are parents are like, yo, you're wasting your time juggling. And you can make a fucking living juggling.
Welcome back to another episode of Ways. My name's Muhammad.
I'm Osama.
And today's episode is cool, it's amazing. It's nice when you have someone that's in the field, really controversial right now, but it's good when you have someone to explain the art form, explain their point, where they're coming from, and to show the beauty of it and why it makes sense and why it shouldn't be seen as something that's bad for society, but something that can uplift people. And when you think about his story, it's very cool, it's unique. He has a special on YouTube called Safe Black. And besides just two words together, it's more to it. And the goal is to really find out the inner layers as far as where he came from, how he grew up, how he saw different cultures, religions, how he tied all these things together to make him who he is today. And that's why I'm so happy, ecstatic to have none and no other Abbas Wahab. Welcome to the Ways podcast. How you doing today, man?
Woo, thanks for having me, boys. Thanks for showing me Riverside FM. This is nice little room we're in right now, huh?
Yes, sir. Honestly, it's lit. I got to give it to Mo, though. Mo's the one that got Riverside to my attention. I never wanted it to begin with, but Mo, I give you the credit.
No, man. Credit all goes to you, bro. Don't worry about it.
You guys are killing it. Trust me, as someone who brings all their guests to my house, I see this, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing? This is amazing. I've been left. No one's here. This is great.
I'm not trying to bring some random man to my house, especially when you have immigrant parents, bro. They'd be like, yo, who are you bringing to your house?
How old are you guys?
I'm 20.
27.
27? Man, yeah, a lot of people would have left house by now. but I guess that's the immigrant vibes, bro. I love it. You're like, I'm not bringing anyone to my house, man. I'm 36, bro. My mom's going to be like, who's that? You're like, get your own place, bro. But I live with my girl, and sometimes I get guests, and it is awkward. I have another room, but definitely, like, I'm a little bit more of an introvert. So, feeling this vibe and feeling like I'm kind of close to you guys, but also, appeasing that introverted side. It's pretty sick. I might end up using this.
The first question I want to ask you is your origins, because in your special, you talk about how you came to Canada at the age of 6. And obviously, You're born in Sudan. Talk to people about that. Do you have any memories about growing up, your family? How big is your family? And what life was like before you came to Canada?
So pretty much I was sent here on a mission to destroy the world, but then I hit my head, and then now I'm good, right? I don't know if you guys watch Dragon Ball Z.
Of course, yeah.
Clearly that went. Okay. Well, a little bit of an extra response would have been nice, but fuck it. Here we are, right? Came here at 6, raised Sudani style, London, Ontario. You know how that goes. I'm sure you guys had a very similar upbringing. Went to engineering, obviously played out. You know how you got to do it. We got the playbook, the immigrant playbook, did that whole thing, graduated, and worked in the field for 3 years. And it was not for me. It's funny how you think when you're in school, you're like, oh, this sucks. But when I start making money, then I'll feel good. And then you make money and you don't feel good. And you're like, what the hell? So that's pretty much how I ended up getting into stand-up. And long story short, I was in the States for some years, moved back to Canada, been in Toronto for like 6 years now, roughly, just grinding away, doing my thing. And I put out that self-produced special last year, just filmed it at Free Times Cafe with a couple buddies, couple cameras. Just I was doing a bunch of material for a while, so I was like, yo, when you put stuff out, and people see it and they come see you, they have the expectation that they're going to see different stuff, right? So that's kind of the catalyst for me being like, yo, I want to put stuff out and kind of like refresh. Is it like, am I going to look back at this and be like, yo, I was so high level? No, man, I already hear some of it and I'm like, oh, because you evolve so quickly. But the reason that it's called Safe Black is because when I got into comedy, I also got into the acting game. In the acting game, especially in commercials, they put everybody in categories. And for these last couple of years, I found out mine happens to be something called Safe Black. Essentially, I'm in every commercial. They love to put a cardigan on me. All right, put the cardigan, polo, put me out there in the cottage with a double. You know what I mean? It works, bro. And that's kind of what I touch on with the album cover. I got some hit back with the album cover. People thought, like, what does that mean, huh? What, you think you're better than me? I'm like, what the fuck? No, listen to it, bro. Watch it. Like, I address it. But what can you do, man? Live and learn.
And when it comes to comedy, how much of it do you think you take from it? Is it something that you give it your all, or is it something that it gives you a voice just to express yourself?
I'd like to think I give it my all. You know, I'm on stage almost every night, and I'm creating, I'm trying shit. A lot of it's bombing. A lot of it is bombing. But, you know, you slowly get towards little nuggets, and my shit's evolving. But if I don't do stand-up for too many days, I get like, ugh, you know what I mean? I get like very like anxiety, and I need it kind of as an outlet. And at the same time, it teeters from like outlet to addiction, you know? Like you're doing too many sets where you're not even human anymore to, I need to get on stage. Whatever the hell it is in between somewhere for me, I'd say.
Can you talk more about your transitioning between engineering going into comedy? Because a few things like, and what lessons...
I'm also becoming a female, by the way. Which transition are you talking about? The vagina or the...
No,
you guys want to see it? I can show you. It's not pretty, by the way. It's step 2 of a 7-step process.
Don't kill me.
It is not pretty.
The transitioning from engineering to comedy. And any lessons you learned on the way, because obviously like engineering is totally different, and like what you have to go through for 4-year hard of school. You said you started working, so what got you that point? So explain your process, your transitioning, and how you got to comedy.
Well, I went 2 years of just doing engineering and living in. At the time, I was living in Michigan in the Detroit automotive industry, working as a program manager. So I kind of skipped the classical engineering job and went straight to like a project manager, which is usually someone who's a little bit more senior, who's done the engineering, design engineering, manufacturing engineering. There's a bunch of like on the ground engineer positions. I kind of just skipped them because I had a hookup. And they needed a position filled, and I just ended up getting it. And yeah, dude, I just hate, like at the beginning, I got a sick car, I got a sick place. I did all the things that I had told myself, all those exam seasons, all those years, 5 years at Waterloo, like, I hate this. But when you make money, and then I made money and I was like, boom, most Def says any money you make doing something you don't love, you blow it quick. Because you're like, I spent 50 hours making this shit. I'm going to have fun with it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's essentially what happened for me for years. And I just after 2 years, I had like a crisis, and I love stand-up. And it was the first time in my life I was like, why can't I do stand-up? And I found an open mic nearby. And, I hit it. I like had a nightmare of a set, but still, something felt good about it. And I kept going back up. And then in the midst of all this, I'm like, you know what? Michigan sucks. I'm going to go to California. So I go to the Bay Area. Because I'm like, you know what the problem is? Michigan is the problem. It's not engineering. It's Michigan.
Michigan's
so I go to San Fran. So, yeah, bro, Michigan's actually... The Bay Area is sick, but San Francisco, I'd rather live in, like, Michigan almost. But Michigan's not that hurt. Detroit, but the suburbs are sick. And there's some dirty shit around there. But yeah, when I'm in San Francisco, I got some random job, another program manager job. But now every night I drive right into the city and I'm doing open mics. And eventually this job, they keep putting me in like projects I don't care about. I get sent to China for a minute at a time, like 3 weeks at a time and shit like that. And I'm trying to hit open mics out there too, just because I'm really in it. When you're first in it, you're like addicted. And I demand to be let off this project. And they're like, yeah, we don't have another one to put you on. So peace, you're fired. They fired me. 2017, I come back to Canada. And I'm like, screw it. God put this he put this hand right in my lap. I don't have to. I'm jobless. I can go back to Canada where I don't have to worry about what visa I'm in on America in on, because when you get a job, you got to get a visa. And when you lose a job, you got to get out and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, yo, now I'm a citizen. I know I don't care about engineering. I know the money does nothing for you. Now, it's been 3 years of me getting everything, doing all the things I wanted, and it did nothing for me. So now I knew for a fact, let's go all into this thing. And I think people have to, whatever you want to achieve, you got to do it. You got to get to that point that you dream about. And if it's exactly what you thought it was, then you met your goal. And if it isn't, then at least you know that path is not for you. So some people may not even, they may be like, oh, I want to be a plumber. And then maybe it's not for them, but you got to do it to know it's not for you.
Yeah.
So I ended up just realizing by the fact that I did it. I don't regret doing it because I know without a doubt now that it's not for me because I did it.
Yeah, just a little to your point, honestly, I agree, because me working in marketing right now and like in client services, I realize that no matter how much money you make, like the first, for me, like I'm too cheap, so I'm not going to spend my money, but a lot of my coworkers are making more money than I am, and like more senior levels. The first thing they want to do on a Friday night is spend it. I'm like their money manager. I'm like, hey, you know, you can invest this into some like stocks, into some like Bitcoin. I'm like, why are you spending it? But they don't care. I have friends who spend a lot of money because in their head, that's what they were thinking of when they were 18 years old, let alone me. Like, because I'm always focused on this talk show and growing it and doing other things, I'm always investing my money in things that I like. So I 100% agree with you. The only time I think you realize that is when you do work a corporate position.
You're right, man. But I was working with a lot of people that, they were obsessed with what they were doing. And it showed me engineering is not a bad career path. It's not like evil or shitty by inherently. It's just not for me, you know? And like I saw people around me, like I said, who were truly passionate about this shit. They stayed extra hours, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know what I mean? Like all the managers left. No one's here. They're so in it. I'm like, oh, and seeing that reminds you, like, this just isn't for you. There's nothing wrong with it. And I always tell people that, like, I'm not shitting on engineering. It just wasn't for me. It doesn't even have to be corporate. You could think your whole life that you want to be a mechanic because you love cars, and then you become a mechanic and you realize, no, I want to be on the engineering side. I don't want to be on the mechanic side of things, right?
No, for sure.
When you finally moved back to Canada in 2017, like you said, jobless, and you have to figure out what you want to do now, and stand-up comedy was that vehicle. Did you face any backlash from your parents or from your friends, relatives? Because obviously, stand-up comedy is not something probably your parents had in mind for you. Wanted to go to school, doctor, lawyer, engineer. You did that. It didn't work. Maybe they probably told you to do another job. How was it like trying to tell people like, hey, I want to do stand-up, but I'm serious about this and I'm trying to commit myself full time to it until it goes to the next level? Was it easy? Did you tell people? Were you secretive about it? Like, how was that whole transition for you?
It was tough, I would say, absolutely, because, you know, I had a good job and I was making a bunch of money. So from my parents' point of view, I was like, what the hell are you doing? They couldn't understand it. But keep in mind, a lot of people don't achieve the things that their parents wanted. So it's like, you could have blah, blah. It's like, no, there's no coulda. I did it. And I worked in it for 3 years. So there's almost no conversation here. I did what you wanted, you know? That's why I'm so far in life now that I'm taking this big U-turn, because I never was actually critical with myself. I never questioned myself because I wasn't trained to. I wasn't taught to. It wasn't in my environment to question. No one was like, some people are raised and told, like, question everything, question authority, be true to yourself. That's not how I was raised. This is what you will do. This is what you will do. This is what you will do. That's how I was raised. So 25 years after the fact, I'm like, whoa, what the hell? I just took 1,000 yeses and I'm in some place. I have no idea how I got here. I don't like any of this shit. So they're like, yeah, they thought I lost it. But then it's funny, once I started getting commercials, oddly enough, even though it has nothing to do with comedy, then they were like, oh, as long as they have something to point their son is
reference,
doing.
yeah.
Exactly. When I got a McDonald's billboard in 2019 with just a spicy chicken sandwich, like some bullshit, like that went around Canada. It was a billboard. It had nothing to do with my talents, but they were using my face. Yo, all questions stopped from everyone. That was like, oh, that's him. He's doing it. Yeah. You know, so oddly enough, get on a billboard if you're trying to transition careers. Just get on a billboard.
That's our goal then. We got to get on a billboard because just
get on a billboard, boys.
Just to add on to your point, people will not
It's that
believe in
simple.
you until you do something like, I guess, exotic or something big. 'Cause in the journey, no one believes in you. The trend is to always believe in someone when they get something done big. It's a small majority. And I guess my question is, who was around that did believe in you? So like when you did leave your job, did you have a support that say, "Man, I believe in that"? Because obviously, even for us, like when we took on this journey, there wasn't a lot of like, yes, people said, "Yeah, we got you." So who was in your lap that said, "You know what? I agree with you. You got this. They're your backbone." Did you have that when you transitioned from engineering to comedy?
Well, it's an ongoing transition. It's not just overnight. But my closest friends did not doubt me because I was never kind of like, I was never a lost kid. I was driven, but just driven towards what society valued. And I, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was just like, what? Doctor, engineer? Okay, I'm gonna be engineer because less school, I can make money faster. Like these are all my decision process. So my friends never worried about me, and except besides my family being worried because I was supporting them financially big time. So when I did that transition, it's also them being like, "Hey, what the hell, man? Well," you know what I mean? And I'm like, I still got you on some level, but I have 5 siblings. Like y'all can fucking carry your share of the weight too. What the hell is this? I'm not the golden child, right? Once they all I was a middle child. Once everyone started becoming of age or where they're working, I'm like, I don't have to shoulder all this stuff that I had to shoulder at one point. But my closest friends did not doubt me. Like my closest friends were like, "You're crazy, bro." But like year after year, especially after them seeing me perform, it went from like, "Just do your thing," to "Yo, you're good," to "Yo, man, you're gonna make it," to "Yo, as if you need any money invested, I got you, bro." Now people are trying to like get in on like the, you know what I mean? They're like, do you have ideas? Can I invest? I'm like, relax, bro.
They're trying to be an investor.
Relax, you're sweating right now. Yeah, exactly. So you see it, and to the point you were saying how like people will not support you until knowing you is a value. So they're gonna be like, I don't know what you're doing, and then your shit pops. Yo, that's my boy, bro. Man, I came up with that. That's my boy, bro. I'll call him right now. Look. Until there is value in knowing you, because then there's no value. So forget what everybody says and fucking do whatever your gut is telling you to do, because that's going to work out. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions yourself, and you're not going to consult these people. You're going to consult your gut.
One thing I want to ask you is that...
Sorry, my bad. Go on.
No worries. One thing I wanted to ask him was, in his special, he talked about one point when it comes to like social status, especially relating to names. So I know one point he talked about like, hey, a guy named Dave Smith might be in a status that's like pertaining to management or leadership, as opposed to someone named Mohammed or some like Russian or European name, difficult name, might be used in like the analytical department, stuff like that. And I thought that was a really cool point because when it comes to like society and how things are framed and structured, it's like certain kinds of people are put in places of leadership, management, resolutions between people and stuff, while others might be put in place just solely for work and like calculations and stuff. I want you to talk about that because that was a really cool point. I never really seen someone make those things together. Was that something you saw from work experiences or growing up or hearing stories from like people around you? What made you think of that connection?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I've done fast food. I've done retail. I was in the reserves. I was in like the military. I was an engineer. I did like so many jobs. And the one place where immigrants can excel is engineering. So the joke is like, it's the only line of work where a complicated name helps, essentially like that, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to design a nuclear reactor, who are you going to hire? Dave Smith or Vivek Abishkovich, right? You're going to hire Vivek and you're going to put Dave in sales, right? Because sales, when you're selling, you want to give the impression that you are wherever you are. So in America, your chances are the salesman that's going to have the easiest time selling to an American is an American. The sales time having the easiest time selling to a Canadian is a Canadian. So you could be an immigrant or of immigrant descent, but you got to be talking like Osama to sell. You know what I mean? You got to be making that shit happen. You got to turn that white voice on to the max, right? So some immigrants, they have accents, so they literally can't do that. They trying to get the charm and like the cadence of like Canadians, but your open accent kind of stops that. But you're a brilliant person. So and in engineering, there's no like walls for that's all they want, right? But for sales and for the leadership and the people that they put up front, they want them to be like whole cultural, traditional values, handsome, as if not white, then speaking in the most Canadian type of way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you guys, great question, Osama.
No, I was gonna add on to this point. Like that's so true because even I've worked in sales in the past, and they always make you do these like scenario sales where they ask you a question, they tell you, oh, sell this product to me, and like they want to see how good your sales skills are, and yeah, like sometimes they always want to they want you to explain it step by step, right? Like to your point, yeah, that does make sense. And also, by the way, I was reading a report one time where they said Canada, I think it was like top 5 in terms of racism. They do not hire you based off of your name, and I've seen it at firsthand. Where like HR, I go, they can't pronounce a name. They're like, we're not hiring this person because of like such and such. But I guess my next question for you would be
yeah, man. I remember 2 things.
Yeah.
I was a telemarketer selling magazine subscriptions. My first job, I was 15. And the lady told me at one point, someone hangs up or whatever. She goes, nobody wants to buy from an Abbas. They want to buy from a John Smith. Use that name from now on. And it worked. You know what I mean? So it's like that goes to show you on 2 levels. First of all, no one would do that now. That was like almost 20 years ago. But it did work. I was like, screw you all. And then I just started saying John. You lower people's guards when you use John, Jack, Bill, fucking whatever. You know what I mean? Neighborhood names. And also, in first year Waterloo, you got to do internships. You got to do a co-op. It's a co-op program.
Yeah.
And I remember the first year I did Waterloo, the first time they had a thing called their job bank or whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah.
And I remember submitting to like just over 700 positions. And I was using my full name, Abbas Wahab. And I didn't get one interview in over 700 applications. Until this day, I'm like, God damn. You know what I mean?
700,
like, God
not one?
damn. Not one interview. Over 700. Like 706, 711, something like that. But over 700 applications, not one interview. That's crazy,
It
huh?
points
That's
out, and that's why I
wild.
loved your point, because it points out the hypocrisy in Canada's like whole idea of multiculturalism. Yes, we want to have as much cultures, identities, religious beliefs inside this place, but at the same time, like you said, if you're going for an interview or a sales job, it's kind of like a double layered where you have to speak in code, but in like a Canadian construct. So even for myself, if I walk through the door for an interview, they're not looking to see a black person and think he is the name of Muhammad Al Hassan. They think he's some guy named like, I don't know, Hakeem Shabazz, or
Jamal, stop your ass.
Jamal Stoudemire or something like that, right? And that's the thing. That's why I loved your point, because it shows how Canada will practice like multiculturalism as a symbolic thing, as opposed
shallow. It's very
to
shallow.
being representative as far as equity, like racial equity, equity as far as immigrants. So I just loved that
That's
nuance.
Right. You're right.
Love the nuance.
But that's why you see.
No, you're making a point here.
No, we're just gonna say that's why you see a lot of immigrants who are from different backgrounds going into becoming an entrepreneur. Whether it's they go into comedy, they become an actor, they want to have their own talk show, or they want to be a model, because the corporate world is by the way, like to get a job that pays a lot of money, especially if you're an immigrant, it's gonna take a long time. Like my director is black, and she just recently I got told this recently that she only got promoted in the past year, and she's been in the company longer than a lot of the executives that are already in vice presidents or presidents. So it kind of shows that there obviously is a lot of, I guess you can call
But also keep in mind that could be performance related. I don't know. We don't know. We just
that
know
could be
she's
the case too.
black. She might be terrible.
Yeah,
She might be
honestly,
terrible at her job. God bless her. She might not be.
That could be the case. But
But,
to add on to your point, there's a lot of people who are shit at their jobs and they get bare promotions. And I've seen it, bro. I'm like, how is this mother effer getting a promotion? Have you seen?
You gotta talk the talk. It's the Trump syndrome, baby. Charisma will take you way further than talent and whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Actually, employee added value. Let me say this though. I worked a lot in Tennessee when I was in the States. When I was working for that Michigan company, the main plant was in just outside Nashville, Tennessee, in a place called Gallatin. And I would spend a long time in Tennessee. And the first time I flew down to Tennessee, I was so scared of racism. You know how they train us in the media, like right when you land, someone just calls you nigger the second
Of
you
course,
land.
yeah.
Right? Right? That, like, that was a little bit of my fear. And then when you land in Tennessee, you realize Michigan is the shitty state. Tennessee is way better. I mean, especially around Nashville where it's like, more liberal. But forget all that. You may see a lot of Confederate flags, but you see no potholes, perfectly paved roads. They barely see snow, so there's no salt damage. And you know what blew my mind? The plant in Tennessee, Gallatin, Tennessee, hired Saudis, Nigerians, and Indians fresh in America although they all had English accents, they all got their degrees abroad. And I never seen that in Canada. In all the places I ever worked, if you were to get a job in Canada, you had to get your degree here, or it has to be American, or when you landed, you took another degree at Western, U of T, Ryerson, whatever the fuck. In Tennessee, in the racist place, they told us, they're hiring these Saudis, these Nigerians who have accents. They got their degrees elsewhere, and they're in integral roles. They're not in bullshit roles, continuous improvement engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, man, Canada is just fucking, they're all about like hiring these colors and putting them up front when we take the pictures. And then everything else is business as usual.
No, it's
Yeah, I
crazy.
agree 100%.
It's crazy.
So my next question for you is like we're obviously talking about a lot of like topics in terms of like the corporate culture and things that you like we're addressing. So how do you go about navigating the potential cultural differences and sensitive, I guess, things that people don't necessarily speak about while you're performing your comedy?
I try not to care. I try not to give a fuck. I do my act. Sometimes it's a show where they say you got to be clean. So, I try my best not to swear and do the dirtier stuff. But you can still be a little dirty. Like they can stomach it. You can feel what they can stomach, even if you agree to do a clean job. But like 80, 90% of the time, I don't go up there and I'm worried about anything. Like, I'm not thinking, oh, will they? I just want it to be funny. It may get some weird response because it may be like, like I'm doing some material in Ukraine right now that a lot of audiences are like, oh, you know what I mean? Because it's like, Ukraine, we have to support. No one say anything else. No one talk. Ukrainian support. I don't want to hear anything else, So it's like, you're like, I get it, but here, think about this, right? And they're like, so some people are a little bit butt hurt right now about just breaching specific topics, but hey, that's the job of the comedian, is to talk about what's happening and just be honest and try to be real. I mean, be funny and be real, and people be like, yeah, that is true. Like, so I can't let it bother me like, oh, what are they gonna like? Because then I'm just fucking evolving into what they want, and then I'm screwed. Then I'm back to just that engineering thing I did before, where I was like, this is what you guys want? Okay, then here I am.
And as far as being on the road, like, what are some of your favorite cities to perform in? Because obviously you're meeting different people, and every city has its own kind of vibe to it, as far as, especially with the clubs and everything. So what are your favorite places to perform and just meet people and interact with the audience?
Calgary's fun because there's so many Sudanese and like African Muslims and Arabs that pull up. Edmonton too. Edmonton's a blast. Edmonton's such a nightmare to live in that they come out to the comedy shows deep. You know what I mean? So Edmonton's fun, man. Even though it's like, if you go in the winter, it's cold as shit, but it's a dry cold. Ontario's a wet cold, so it even feels worse. The East Coast, the vibes are amazing. They're just like the best. They're like the most laid back. They're like the oldest society of Canada. Like when I think of Canadians, true Canadians, even if they're like Egyptian Canadians, whatever, I think of East Coast people. And then the West Coast is sick because it's so beautiful around you, and like everyone's laid back and everyone's a little more on the stone side. Weed's obviously real big, but they laugh the hardest in the East Coast and in Alberta. And weather-wise and just like the beauty of their surroundings, the West Coast is the shit. And then obviously Montreal is fun. And then every city, man, everyone wants comedy. 90% of places you go, they're so happy you're there.
Yeah.
And it's Toronto's the ones that's tough. When I do my monthly show, people come out. It's sick, but I perform every night on random people's shows. And Toronto's tough. There's so many comedy options, and the people are like comedy snobs a little bit.
Yeah.
So they come to the shows with their arms crossed, like, let's see what you got, type of deal.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not gonna lie. The first time me and Mo went to a comedy show was in December. We went to see Dave Merhej because he invited us out, and so we went. And that was the first time we saw. I'm not gonna lie, and we also saw. That's the first time we also got introduced to Keith Pedro, who was on the pod. But there were some people before that.
My boy.
Yeah, Keith Pedro's a funny guy, man. This guy killed it. Because anyone before Keith Pedro and Dave Merhej were trash. I'm saying it from right now. There was one person specific. I'm not going to say who it was. But it was pin drops. It was silent. I remember it was like, who brought this person on? Like, I'm not a comedian. I'm not.
You better wear a mask the next time you go to a comedy show with someone, because that person's going to see you.
I don't care, bro. They don't even know who I'm referring to.
Yo, there he is.
Yo, bring it on, bro. Listen, dude. Bring it on, bro. All they gotta know is like I'm Palestinian, bro. Like I got some rocks hidden.
That's good material. They're gonna have a good 5 minutes for you. They're gonna have a good 5 minutes.
I already live at home with my mom. You can't take nothing.
Exactly, bro. I got 9 on me, bro. I'm cheap. But no, I'm saying it. It's like I think that day I was just like Keith Pedro and the Dave Merhej, like they were funny. Like they killed it. You can definitely tell they were seasoned. But yeah, that specific person, horrible.
Yeah, man. I mean, every show is like that. You get a variety. A lot, depending on where you go. It's usually all the shows are pretty sick shows. But, all the comics are pretty good comics, especially if you had a club on a weekend. But, yeah, I mean, and even the people that you saw, they sucked, man. Sometimes you have an off night. Sometimes you try new shit. Sometimes whatever's going on and you have a shitty set. You know, it's not even Keith Pedro and Dave Merhej have bad sets. You know, you just when you catch them on that night, you might paint them by that brush, being like, these guys suck. But it's just the longer you're in it, the higher your numbers are. So it goes from 60% success to 70 to 80 to now you rarely have a bad set. But everyone has a bad set every now and then. Yeah, even Chappelle said it. He goes, I knew my number was coming. Like I had too many good shows in a row. I knew my number was coming. A bad show is coming. That's just the nature of the beast.
One thing I want to ask you is because, like, also social media, you're making videos for Instagram, TikTok. You have a very big following. Even some of my classmates actually know you and actually, like, want to say hi as far as you coming on the podcast. Which one do you enjoy more recently? Do you think it's, obviously, comedy's your heart. You've been doing that. It gives you the platform to speak your mind and obviously to fill that void between what's going on in society. And you're like a vessel for those who are trying to understand something but don't and have questions, and you're able to interpret in a way that makes everyone in the room, whether they're liberal, Republican, whatever kind of belief, come to a good ground, right? So, but at this,
can you write that down? By the way, I'm gonna put that in my bio. I'm like, yeah, that's nice.
No, I got you, bro.
I gotta include that shit.
At the same time, with social media, making videos, quick tidbits, sketching, improv, all that stuff, characters. That's a different kind of creative animal as well. Which one do you feel more, I don't know, which one do you love more recently? Is it both? Is it more the comedy side or just social media coming up with the skits?
Nothing beats stand-up. Everything I do on social media is an effort to get people to come to the live show. Everything on the podcast, there's nothing that even comes close to stand-up. Stand-up is like a living organism where it's like you're there. There's an energy that you can't recreate. For the audience, that specific audience that's there that night. These people, even someone might have a fucking sniffle that night, and their sneezes get intertwined with jokes, and you'll never be able to recreate that show. Like, so stand-up has this beautiful quality to it where it's like it's truly a momentary event. And social media, I look at it as my commercials, man. So you got to dump in your comedy, give people a taste. Tidbits, little snackable size of what your comedy stylings are, and hopefully they fuck with you and they share it with people and they start coming out to the shows, because when people come out to the shows, I can pay my rent and I can actually have a decent standard of living. That's and I do commercials, and random brands will approach you and be like, oh, include this in your thing, and I do those every now and then, but I do that like a job. I do that like I did engineering. Like, okay, what's, you know what I mean? But stand-up is like, It's all about stand-up. Nothing comes close to it. And even though making content is fun, it's sometimes it feels like work. But stand-up, if it feels like work, it's usually a pretty bad sign.
No, yeah, I was gonna ask what honestly, I can't even see this guy. That's why.
These pauses.
But I was gonna
This
say,
guy's on that dial-up. I love it.
your creative process, like when it comes to making videos, because one of my favorite videos is your job interviews. And I've been watching you personally like since 2019. So, and I'm always I guess I find a relation to like your videos and your interviews. So like, how do you get inspired by making these videos? Is it things that you personally went through, or the stories you hear from people? You're like, I'm gonna make that. Like, how do you come up with these like concepts and like put them up for the people to see?
It started with my personal experiences because I really started with all the stores, Tim Hortons, Walmart, McDonald's, etc. So it's just like accumulated experiences of my life thus far. But then they started getting so popular and I started running out of goddamn ideas that I'm like, yo, I got to do careers. I got to do this. And then slowly it's become this like, okay, podcasters, what do? The microphones, loud. They're loud. You know what I mean? Like now I'm trying to piece this shit together. That's why, bro, like sometimes I make them, I'm like, I'm trying to, I always want to be true to myself and be fresh because I'm at the point with the job interviews, I'm not going to lie, that the reason I'm not pumping them out as hard as I was is because I'm not feeling it. I'm waiting for the inspiration a little bit. I'll keep dropping my stand-up in the meantime, but it felt like such a job at some point, even though at the beginning there was momentum where it's like, oh, you like that one? Watch what I have to say about Harvey's or whatever the hell. But then it's like, but then it becomes contractors where I'm like, okay, I've had 2 experiences with contractors in my life. I'm like looking back, okay, I'm trying to like add stuff. You know, it just becomes, it's become a different thing. It's become a different thing.
And for our last question,
Yeah.
I loved what you said. Like for comedy, you can't recreate the last show. Like every show has its own kind of vibe, energy, and feeling to it. And I kind of feel like the same way with the podcasting. Every guest is different. Every conversation flows different. And obviously the response and answers you get from the guest could change someone's world or just be the worst thing on earth. And I think with your story and just the whole thing from you is just like, you are a jack of all trades. You've done like over 100,000 different things, but it didn't go to waste. Obviously, it led to something like comedy where you're able to tell your story in different mediums, different platforms, and people could see it and they could use it and they could feel from it. So as this question, I want to let you say, if someone's listening right now in any kind of field in life and they feel as if I was that person, how he felt when he was doing engineering, and even though I'm making the money, even though I'm getting the car, even though I have the house, even though I might have that bad girl, I don't feel at ease. I don't feel content. What do you tell them, even though making that transition comes with a sacrifice, but in the end, it'll be worth it? What do you say?
I say, first of all, smoke a little weed. And then step 1, you know. But man, you got to do it. Think about it. You live a long life, you know, inshallah, God willing, that you live a long life. So if I'm 25 and I don't like what I do, what? I'm just going to swallow it and do it for 30, do it for more, continue doing that thing for more years than I've been alive up until that point? That's insanity. What? That's crazy. Even if it takes 10 years to retrain yourself, even if it takes 10 years to find your footing in whatever you truly care about, then at least you reap the benefits of the next 30, 40 years of life, you know, based on an average lifespan. Life is long, man. You know, I get YOLO, you only live once, but it's a long life. So it's like, do you really want to be doing something that is constantly feels like you're swimming against the current, you're sanding against the grain? If you know what you like, then get your foot in it on any level, whether it's taking education path to learn it, going volunteering in it, trying to find a part-time gig in it, whatever it is, I don't care. Even if you're like, I bet you now, especially with the internet, I bet you there are people right now that who are juggling, who love juggling, who are parents are like, yo, you're wasting your time juggling. And you can make a fucking living juggling. You can absolutely do that. You can teach masterclass on juggling. You can go to Vegas and juggle. Anything is possible as long as you're obsessed with it. So if you're doing something you don't want to do, then get your footing, crack into the door at any level into the thing you do want to do. Whether it's go take a course, start watching online classes, volunteer, like I said, just get involved on some level and slowly increase your involvement on that thing while you position yourself to hopefully decrease your involvement in whatever you're doing now. And if you stay on it, then I think you could become, if you wanted to become a doctor right now, in 10 years, you could be in a hospital becoming a doctor, right? 10 years is a long time, sure, but then you can be the thing you want to be for decades.
And with that, I think that's the perfect way to end it. Thank you so much for coming on today's platform. Thank you so much for sharing your wise words, experience, and story. And we hope that everyone loves it. Someone definitely wants to, follow up with you, see your content. Please tell the audience how they can follow up with you as far as social media and anything else.
Yeah, you guys drop this Friday, you said? I don't know. It may be sold out by then. But in Toronto, I have 2 shows this Friday at Free Times Cafe, 7:30 and 10. Tickets, you can get them at abbaswahab.com. Or go to my Instagram. In the bio, there's a link. But yeah, my Instagram, Abbas Wahab. My YouTube, Abbas Wahab. My TikTok, Abbas Wahab. ABBASWAHAB. Connect and watch the bullshit,
You guys thought we were done? I don't think so. We still gotta wrap it up. Please follow me at Kusa300. Follow my co-host Muhammad at Muhammad.global. Make sure to follow our page at Instagram. Also, make sure to subscribe to all our platforms. We drop every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you next week.